Hey everybody, it's Roxanne at home here in Arizona. How you guys doing? Hope you're all having a good week. It's been crazy. I know I haven't been getting out very many videos, but really haven't had a... Actually, that's not true. I have been pretty busy. Been keeping myself busy with I'm going to 3 different Bible studies during the week and bowling, and I've gotten back into the ceramics club. So I've been keeping myself busy. But I wanted to do a little story time today because today represents the 1 year anniversary of when my husband went to be with the Lord. And I thought today would be a good day to give you guys a little bit about our story. And so I'm going to kind of go through this. I've written some of it down so that I can remember because, it's been a long time. We were together for 45 years, married for just under 43. He passed 10 days before our 43rd anniversary. So there's a lot in those 45 years. And so I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what our story was. Throughout this, I'll throw in some pictures throughout the years. And so hopefully, hopefully this is going to be a good story time, but I felt like today would be a good day to honor him. So, we met in May of 1978. I was a sophomore in high school and he was a senior. It was about 2 or 3 weeks before he graduated. At that time, my parents had divorced, and my mom and my sister and my stepdad and I moved to a town that was about 26 miles away from where I had grown up. But they allowed us to continue going to our original schools for the end of the year because we moved, mid-year, and she didn't want us to switch schools mid-year, so that was good. I spent a lot of time at my dad's house, his apartment, during that time as well. So when we met, it was in the town that I grew up in, and we were both in that high school. And we dated for about 2.5 years before we got married. I worked as a lifeguard at the local pool, and he went to work at a department store called Ollie's. It was a hardware store, kind of like a more like a True Value or Ace Hardware, kind of on a smaller scale. But because we lived so far apart, I would spend my summers at my dad's house where I worked at the pool, and then during the year he would come out and we would visit that way. We ended up getting married in November of 1980. I graduated early. I graduated in January of 80 and from high school, and went to cosmetology school. And I finished cosmetology school in, I believe it was September, and got my cosmetology license in October, but wasn't working doing hair because I needed to find a job right away. And so I was working actually as I guess they call it a receptionist or host at Marie Callender's restaurant. And he was still working at the hardware store. We moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment in the town that we both grew up in. And we were there for just a couple of months. Soon, quickly discovered that the apartment managers were alcoholics. We had extremely noisy neighbors. So it was just not a good situation. And his boss that he worked with, his department manager, lived in the apartments next door to ours. And he said, hey, they've got somebody just moved out of one of the apartments there. So I'll put in a good word for you guys if you want to move there. So that's what we did. It was, just an alleyway between the two apartments. So we just moved all our stuff from one apartment to the other and moved into the new apartments. And we were there for a couple of years, living in that small little apartment, but it was cozy and we had, we enjoyed it. And then shortly thereafter, we moved to, after a couple of years, we moved to a 2-bedroom, 2-story condo in another city. And we lived there for quite a while. My husband went through a couple of different job changes during that time. Got a job at just a paint and glass store. But he worked retail and he worked hard. And for somebody with a bone disease working retail and lifting 5-gallon things of paint was really hard. Excuse me a minute. I need to get a drink. Sorry. So during that time in the townhouse, we adopted our daughter and felt very blessed for that. And then we ended up moving and purchasing a mobile home. It was a really old, I think it was a 1972 mobile home. And the park was nice. It was a family park. But of course, as all mobile home parks do, they have their problems. But it was a good place for as long as it lasted. And we were there probably about 4 years. My husband had gotten laid off and went to other paint stores and went back and forth between different paint stores during that time and was managing different paint stores. And then he was laid off in 1993. And we had decided at that point that we no longer wanted to be in California. By then we had our son and then we had our daughter, and we just didn't want to raise them in California. So he wanted to move to Colorado. I wanted to go up to the Pacific Northwest, and he didn't really want to go there because he didn't like the rainy weather. So I gave him 2 weeks to go to Colorado and find a job. And wouldn't you know it, he did it. He went out there, started down in Pueblo, up to Colorado Springs, up to Denver, and found a job. He got a job as an assistant manager at a paint store. So we ended up in July of 1993 moving out to Colorado. We didn't know. I knew one person that lived there. He had some extended family, but they never really were close. But I knew one girl out there that I had met years before when I was in junior high and high school, and I belonged to a girls' organization called Job's Daughters. And so I knew her, and that was it. That's the only person we knew out there. And so we moved out there into a little apartment. We were in that apartment for our 6-month lease. And during that 6 months, I met another lady on the playground waiting for my daughter to get out of school. I had my son. He was playing out on the playground. He was only 3, so he wasn't old enough to go to school yet. And she had a 6-month-old baby. So she had 2 older boys that were in school. One of them was my daughter's age. So we met out on the playground. We became fast friends. They lived in some townhouses that were just around the corner. And she's like, oh, there's one open for rent. Why don't you guys move into that one? So we did. So we moved into the little townhouse, and we were there less than 6 months. We had a 6-month lease, but we were there less than 6 months because an opportunity came up for us to purchase our first house out there that we could actually afford. So we did that, and I'm going to put a picture of that house in here of what it looks like now. It didn't look like that back then, but was a nice little house. It was 900 square feet up top, had a fully finished basement that was 900 square feet on the bottom, had 2 bedrooms and a bath and a laundry room and a big like playroom area for the kids down there. Up top, it had 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, living room, kitchen. And then it had a huge backyard. And we lived there. That was I believe we moved there in 95. So we lived there for like almost 4 years. And we ended up purchasing another house a little further. I wanted to get out of the middle of town. I kind of like more rural areas. So we purchased a house kind of a little bit further out of town. I'll put that picture in here. It was a tri-level. And so we moved in there. And we lived there for quite a good amount of time. And till I believe 2004. Yeah, 2004. So we moved in on New Year's Eve, basically, and 98 into 99, and then moved in 94. We have moved, just so you know, I believe I counted 11 times we've moved. And we moved to Phoenix. We decided we were both at that time working for the Yellow Pages. My husband was a graphic artist. He finally got an opportunity. He was a terrific artist, and he got an opportunity to become a graphic artist at the Yellow Pages. And a couple of years later, I got a job there doing collections work. So we were both working at the Yellow Pages. We had a chance to transfer out to Phoenix and thought, well, that'd be great because it's closer to where my mom was living, closer to his family. My dad, everybody, all our family lived in California, except for my mom who lived in Arizona. We thought, that's great. We'll be closer. We can get out of the snow for a little bit and just, go out there to Arizona. My daughter had just graduated high school at that point. So she decided she wanted to stay, but then eventually came to Arizona with us. And so we were there about a year and a half, and then wouldn't you know it, they said, well, we're going to do some layoffs in my department, and so you guys can, take the layoff and take your severance, or you can transfer back to Denver. And I was actually kind of missing Denver at that point. And so we decided we were going to move back to Denver. So we did that. And we bought, which was a little bit hard because the house we bought when we moved to Arizona the first time was pretty much a dream house. It was like 2,300 square feet, had 4 bedrooms, had a pool, was just like, I couldn't believe but we're able to afford that house. The thing is, we really couldn't. We had 2 mortgages on it, and with the possibility of a layoff, there was no way we were going to be able to afford to stay there. So that was another big driving factor for us coming back. So we did. We went back to Denver, and we actually lived in Aurora, not Denver, but southeast Aurora. And we got a house out there that was a really, really nice house. We lived in that house for the next 12 years. Our son went to school, graduated. Our daughter moved, was moved in with us for a while, then moved out on her own. And we did really good. In 2010, my husband had a back injury and he had to have back surgery. And life kind of really took a major change at that point. He never really fully recovered from that back surgery. And he ended up going out and basically retiring on full disability from that point forward. The bone disease that he was born with, and it was one that, the majority of people that get it, they don't make it out of their teens. So he was really, one of the quote unquote lucky ones that his wasn't as severe. But as he got older, it started to get worse again. When he was young, he broke both his legs, both his arms. He had multiple fractures when he was younger, multiple times. So it just wasn't, he kind of grew out of it in his teen years and in 20s and 30s, but then started getting bad again. So he went out on disability, and I kept working, and we stayed out there. We were there until 2017. And at that time, by then I had gone through a couple of different layoffs with different companies, and was working at a job that I really did not like and was extremely stressed at. And it was bad. And we had thought about moving back to Arizona to retire, and also so that we would be closer to my mom as she got older. My dad had passed a few years earlier. He lived in California. And during that time that he got sick, I was traveling a lot between Colorado and California to help care for him. And I didn't want that to be the same situation with my mom, because it was just so hard on all of us. So we talked to our kids about it. They said go. So that's why we ended up moving back out to Arizona and moving into this retirement community. And so we thought, this is great. We'll be in this retirement community. We'll have all kinds of activities, fun things to do. We join, bowling league, and we were doing really good until his health started getting worse, and he needed to have knee replacement surgery. And he had that, I believe it was in early 2019, I think. And then 2 weeks to the day after the knee replacement surgery, he broke his femur on the same exact leg. So he never really was able to recover from the knee surgery, because the recovery is completely different for both. Knee surgery, you're supposed to bend your knee and start walking and do all that. Whereas the femur, you're not supposed to put any weight on it and all of that. So his knee never really recovered properly, and his health started to decline rapidly after that. And for the last, from 2019 until he passed away last year, he was in pain, in very poor health, and it was really rough on him. And it was hard. It was hard to see him go through that. It was hard on the kids. It was hard on me. It was hard on him. But he always, every time he had to go into the hospital, we always knew he was going to come back out. We always knew that, yep, you're coming back. It's just a minor setback. But this last time he didn't. And it was a shock. And it was hard. But I know that he's in a better place. And we were both Christians. I am a Christian. I believe, that the Lord has saved me and that I will be with him in heaven one day. And I believe that he took him home when he needed to be home. I had looked in my journal a couple of months after my husband passed away and was reading what I had written while he was in the hospital. And I kept writing, Lord, heal him so he can come home. And as I was reading that a couple of months later and thinking, why didn't he get to come home this time? The Lord very clearly told me, oh, my child, he is home. He's home with me. And wow, that just changed my whole perspective on things. And it's hard, and it's been a hard year not having him here. But he's home. He's not in pain. He's with God. And that gives me peace. He passed away 10 days before our anniversary. I had dinner reservations for us to go on that anniversary. It would have been our 43rd anniversary. So my daughter was out here with me, and my parents live here now. My mom and my stepdad, they live here now. So the four of us went out and celebrated that last year. So that was good. We needed to do that. This year, my church is doing their first ever women's retreat. And it starts on the 15th of November, which will be our 44th anniversary. So I will be going to that to spend time with some Christian women and with the Lord for that weekend. So that's our story. I just wanted to share that with you guys on this anniversary of his graduation into heaven. I know he's in a much better place, and I know I'll see him again. So God bless you all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here and supporting me for this last year. And I'll see you again. God bless you all. Have a wonderful week. Bye for now.